Thank you for joining us for our monthly webinar series from Local Market Monitor, where we take a closer look at this month's National Economic Outlook, which was written by Local Market Monitor's founder, Ingo Winzer. For those of you that don't know Ingo, he's been analyzing real estate markets for over 30 years and is a graduate of MIT and Boston University. He's not your typical economist and has a knack for taking complex data, extracting what is important, and providing unique insights and tangible guidance on real estate markets. So with that, I bring you Ingo and his insights on the economy.
Thanks very much, Carolyn. Every month, we look at the latest economic data to see what they can tell us about the current state of real estate markets and where they might be headed. Our underlying premise is that you make better investment decisions when you have a better idea of the economic forces that affect supply and demand. This month, we'll talk both about the economy in general and about home prices, specifically about what is likely to happen with prices during the next few years. We all know that home prices have increased dramatically, on average up 45% since the start of 2020. And there are very few markets where they increase less than 20%. This is unheard of, and without any economic justification, except that some people badly want to buy a house and very few people want to sell one. This is how bubbles are created, and the big question is how this one will burst. It's not a question of whether, it's just a question of when. This is where the growth of the economy comes into play. A rapidly growing economy, by creating new jobs and providing more income, creates strong demand for housing and supports higher home prices. If the economy is growing fast enough, high prices can last a while until new construction catches up. But if the economy slows down, there's not enough demand to keep home prices high, and we'll see the bubble burst. This is true for the economy as a whole, and even more for individual local markets. So let's take a look at the national economy. Here's a picture of the economy represented by the growth of jobs, the increase in jobs each month compared to the same month of the previous year. In August, that growth was 2%. Not bad under ordinary circumstances, but we obviously see the slowing trend, which strongly suggests that a good portion of the added jobs are not really new jobs, just jobs recovered from the pandemic. This is a crucial distinction as far as the housing market is concerned, because recovered jobs will mainly go to people who already live in the local market, not to people who are moving into an area. It's newcomers who increase the demand for housing and therefore support higher home prices. Looking at subsectors of the economy confirms this view. In manufacturing, even though government incentives and the evident supply chain problems of foreign factories encourage more domestic production, the annual growth of jobs that was close to 4% back in 2022 has trickled down to about 0.5%. In construction, on the other hand, the growth of jobs looks pretty steady despite high interest rates. Job growth in finance has held pretty steady, but at a very modest level. And staffing in retail stores remains flat, as it was even before the pandemic. Most concerning for the economy is the slowing growth of jobs in business services, services that every business needs, and therefore a strong indicator of overall business activity, both new and old. Jobs in this sector increased at only 1.3% in August, and it sure looks like that will go even lower. If that figure goes below 1%, we can start betting on a new recession. In healthcare, on the other hand, the growth of jobs has been getting stronger. The healthcare sector has for years been one of the strongest drivers of the economy, so this would ordinarily be a very positive sign. But a lot of the recent job growth isn't new. It's driven largely by the restaffing of nursing homes that were hit so hard during the pandemic. They're not new jobs, they're old ones. The same is true for restaurants, where jobs increased almost 4% in August, but where growth before the pandemic, and therefore what we can expect once the jobs are refilled, was less than 2%. And the same is true for jobs in government, which increased at a 2% rate in August, but for the entire decade before the pandemic, never increased even 1% a year. So what does this all mean for home prices? Here's a look at how the average home price increased each quarter compared to the same quarter of the previous year. The increases peaked in early 2022 and have slowed down since then. but the average price in the second quarter of this year was still 5% higher than last year. In most areas of the country, the local picture is almost a mirror of the national picture. In Atlanta, for example, and this is where the economy comes in. Prices have increased so fast, so much that they'll have to come down. But how much and how fast depends on the economy. In a strong economy, a boom doesn't have to be followed by a bust. A long period of flat prices can be the alternative. That period can be 10 years, it's happened before, until prices and incomes are again in balance. But within a national economy that appears to be slowing down, it's unlikely that more than a few local economies will be strong enough, long enough to support high home prices. Right now, prices in Charlotte look pretty much like those in Atlanta. And also in Indianapolis, which is representative of many markets in the Midwest. In Florida, which has had some of the sharpest price increases, the picture in Tampa is very similar. In all these markets, prices were up about 5% in the past year. And in Miami, they were up 12%. At first, these pictures suggest a soft landing is possible. Prices that may not increase very much, but that won't come down much either. But in markets in the western part of the country, we're starting to see a different picture, one that these eastern markets are very likely to follow. In Los Angeles, even though it's a bit tough to see on this chart because it's zero, prices in the past year were flat. In Denver, they were down 2%. In Salt Lake City, 3%. In Seattle, also 3%. In Boise, 6%. And in Austin, Texas, 8%. I'm sure that in these markets, we're just seeing the tip of the iceberg. There will be more decreases to come. The local economy in Austin, Seattle, and Salt Lake City right now is no different from those of Atlanta, Tampa, and Miami. Home prices aren't going down there because of poor economic growth. That's why I think that all these markets, even in Florida, will soon follow this same pattern, lower prices, with faster decreases in some markets than others, but with very few exceptions. That's it. In this time of uncertainty, when some markets will do well, but many won't, it's important for professionals to stay on top of local economic and real estate pressures. Local Market Monitor provides the data and analysis they need with local market reports and Investors Metro analysis. Thanks very much for following along. This is our National Economic Outlook. I'm Ingo Windsor.